All right, so we have an amazing panel for you this afternoon. I had the privilege of being on the phone with each of these individuals, and I was extremely impressed with all that they're doing. And it's not for the accolades, even though each one of them has a lot of awards and accolades. It's really for the passion that they have for food waste, and recovery, and making sure that that we're getting food through the supply chain to the end user and not going into landfills. So from your right, my left, we have Miku Jha from AgShift. We have Jasmine Crowe from Goodr. Amy Yoder from
Anuvia plant nutrients.
Anuvia, yes.
All right, I'll help you out, Paco.
Thank you very much. And we have our Miami person from Lisa Merkle from Box Greens. So please welcome our panel. And I'm at the bottom, Paco Velez. I'm local here, Feeding South Florida, the local Feeding America food bank. So thank you guys for being part of this right before the lunch. We have about 2.5 hours to get through this, so we'll try to make this quick. So first and foremost, we have Amy Yoder here, who's working on the last part of the food system, the waste side. So I'm going to ask Amy to share a little bit about what she does. But we've all heard about the issue of food waste here in the United States. Some folks say it's about 40% wasted here in the United States, but also across the globe. So what are the ways, Amy, that we can minimize the food waste, and that goes into the landfills?
So really, Paco, we look at it at a slightly different. So we applaud and support everyone who's trying to reduce food waste in what I'm going to call the beginning parts of the chain. But ultimately, for Anuvia, we look at food waste as really our foundation or our platform of our technology. So our technology takes waste materials like food waste, we break them down, we add nutrients, and we create a full retail commercial fertilizer that can be used on broad-scale agriculture. And the advantage of using waste materials not only gets it out of landfills, but it also reduces greenhouse gas. We contribute carbon back to the soil, and we do it in a way that the farmer can do today. In fact, right now we're on over 1 million acres in the United States alone.
Wow. So obviously there's some amazing things going on with say recycling or recovery some of that waste and putting it back into the soil and making a good use of our waste. So I'll tap Jasmine here, who was actually voted top 100 women entrepreneurs for Entrepreneur Magazine. So huge kudos to her. There's a lot of food waste. Yes, exactly. There are a lot of food waste on the dinner table. Not so much stuff that we can do anything about here, but packing houses, distribution centers, and even on the farm. Amy's doing a great job of recycling and getting food back, or getting the waste back into the soil in a healthy way for our environment and for our farmers. Is there a way to recover the product before it gets too ripe and ends up in landfills or ends up somewhere it should?
I mean, absolutely. That's the technology that we've built at Goodr. We largely see ourselves as leveraging technology both to combat hunger as well as food waste. And when you hear a statistic that says we waste 40% of all the food we produce in this country, it should let us all know that the issue of hunger is not an issue of scarcity. Goodr sees it as a matter of logistics. So we've built a tech platform that works very much like a DoorDash or Uber Eats, but in reverse. So when businesses do have excess food that's either going to go to landfill or compost, they have now an option to request a pickup. We leverage the same drivers in the shared gig economy that are already on the road. So in many cases, this food is getting picked up in 3 to 5 minutes and then delivered to a nonprofit in a 3 to 5 mile radius. And so at this point now, we're recovering food, we're keeping it out of landfill, and we're actually getting it to people in need. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there to continue to reduce food waste and to fight hunger.
Indeed there is. And that brings up Mika. There are a lot of individuals, a lot of companies that are impacted by the decision whether to sell product or to donate the product or to dispose of the product, whether it's through the landfill or through a composting or refertilization. I made up that word, but recycling and making fertilizer. If you make the wrong decision, retailers may alienate customers. or even nonprofits like myself, not myself, but Feeding South Florida, that choose to take in loads and loads of produce, end up taking loads that may be bad, and we end up having to dispose of it if folks like Amy are not around to help take it, or pig farmers or cattle farmers. What do you foresee the future of technology? We heard Jasmine talk about technology. What do you foresee the future of technology is to help our growers, our retailers make better decisions?
So AgShift is from, Paco used this expression, Silicon Valley. So we are from there. The thing is that we are right in the middle of all different kinds of innovation which technology can bring. But to be very fair, when it comes to food, when it comes to agriculture, it's not at the same level of focus and mind space for a lot of entrepreneurs. And we feel that if more entrepreneurs can at least have the aspiration to bring technology to address some of the challenges which we are facing, if just that focus changes, then we have opportunity to expedite the innovation and bring it to this industry, right? Because the gap is not in technology. So all of us have heard or continue to hear, even whether we like it or not, about self-driving cars, right? So the office building where we are, every other office is a startup in self-driving cars. Okay, we are all trying to get to do something for that car to move without us being in it. And it's the thing to be happening. Now, the thing is, yes, we could also be one of those companies, take AI, take deep learning, and push that same thing. But we said, why can't we use the same technology, and rather than self-driving cars, why can't I have self-grading strawberries? Why can't I have self-grading raspberries or self-grading mangoes? The idea is that you have innovation, let's start applying it to this vertical, and great things can happen. One of those, I'm biased, is with AgShift, where what I said is exactly what we do, which is we take AI, we take deep learning, we take all this fancy, innovative, cutting-edge solution, but at the end of the day, we apply it to do something very simple. We are automating food quality assessment so that we give industry a tool to be better at what they have been doing in a way, the same way for last 50, 60, 100 years.
So one of the things I was talking to Miku about was the AI, and AI is the unknown. It's the scary, sometimes can be scary, and it was interesting where she was mentioning the grading of some of these commodities and making it easier or better for the entire supply chain to understand the quality of these commodities, to make sure that at the end user level, they're not ultimately paying the price for any kind of waste throughout the entire food system. But ultimately, there is waste in the food system from every aspect. And when I was on the phone with Lisa Merkle sitting next to me, she mentioned there's about a 15 to 20% waste in just the transport of product. I'm sorry?
Through the supply chain.
Through the supply chain.
Yeah.
Not including what goes back into the tilled into the fields. So is there a way to eliminate that waste from your side, and what are you guys doing?
So I'm part of Box Greens. We're a local indoor hydroponic farm. It's great that Aero Farms was just a couple speakers before us. We're just a little bit smaller than those guys. So when speaking about food waste, Paco, you mentioned the 15 to 20% that is lost along the food supply. That, the food chain. The food supply chain. That does not include what is lost out on the field, and that does not include what Jasmine works with, where that's kind of post-consumer. What we saw in that video from Aero Farms is that everything is beautiful. Like, there is no waste in the field. We don't have any uglies. So many of you might be familiar with the term uglies in produce that doesn't get delivered to the grocery store. There's organizations that redistribute that, or it goes to loss. So we don't have that issue in our farm. We don't have that waste. The other element that is unique when we talk about food waste is that we are 35 days from seed to harvest. So I can't say we react to consumer demand in real time, but it's pretty close. So I meet with a chef, a restaurant, and they can tell me what they want, and I grow to fulfill their needs. And it isn't immediate, but we're, 4 or 5 weeks out, so that I have precision around that. And like I said, we don't have uglies. So those are ways in which we prevent food waste before it even happens. And then the last way we kind of address that is, of course, we don't have, exactly X amount of heads of lettuce a week, X amount of heads distributed. So every Friday, whatever is not either assigned to a chef or hasn't already been picked up, we pack it up and bring it to the farmer's market, where we have an opportunity to work direct to consumer and talk about a hydroponic farm and the food system as a whole and the quality, and everyone gets to taste it. I encourage children to taste it. And one thing that is unique about the farmer's market we were at is that it is set up so we can accept food stamps, SNAP benefits. So when speaking around the issue of access, I don't think it's like the big answer, but individuals in an underserved neighborhood, which is where the farmer's market is geographically, have the ability to come to the market. So we don't have any waste. And what if we don't sell it at the farmer's market? We drop it off at Camilla's house, which is a homeless shelter. And I think that ethos within our organization is because we're part of this community and that system that is concerned with not just our element of growing beautiful food and addressing specific issues around climate and food supply, but bigger issues such as food waste.
In having conversations with all 4 of these individuals, I'm going to put them on a spot. This is a question that none of them knew they were going to get. And it's a simple question, but it's also a little bit more profound for them individually. I always ask this question to folks I come into contact with, just because I wonder what drives them and what motivates them to do what they do. Having spent time on the phone with them, learning about them and their business and themselves as individuals, some very, very dynamic individuals on this stage that way that are speaking here in front of you. And I really wish we had more time, but I'll start with Miku. Why did you come from IBM, you come from the tech world, you call yourself a geek.
Yes.
Why food for you?
A good geek. So the thing is, I'm originally from India, and my dad is a 4th generation smallholder grower. We have tons and tons and tons of mango farms, if that's any measure of measuring wealth. So the thing is, growing up, I've been part of that community. I understood what it meant to be part of the growing ecosystem. I came to US. My medium of expression for the world was technology. And I've done multiple startups. I did 5 different startups, then joined IBM. And this was 2016 when California was going through drought. And I was leading a lot of initiatives on irrigation sensors and IoT and all the innovation that we could bring to the farms. That's how I started driving up to the farms and saw a huge disconnect that there is just not enough nurturing of bringing technologies to farms. And 2016 was a very sensitive year because even back in India, if you guys followed the news, there are a lot of unpleasant events. You can't really, in farming community, it's the root cause of events is not important. What was important that the growers didn't even have access to something as basic as weather data, which we assume to be free. We get it when we want it. So when you start connecting the dots, I was leading the AI initiative at IBM, and the product I was building would actually, if you are shopping in Macy's or Starbucks, I will help you buy better or I will sell more, right? Like I'm going to convince you to buy a more expensive shoes, right? That was my product, which was all AI applied to insights. And the thought process was that, couldn't I do something better with that same technology to the things I care about? And it just kept growing bigger and bigger. You know, when you have that moment when you have to take a call, you have to compare the paycheck with what you really want to do. It's a very tough decision, I think, for all entrepreneurs, especially when all you understand is technology and you're trying to get into food, which you know nothing about, right? But then, you know, why go halfway? I went all the way and got into food and started driving on farms in California, Central Valley. There's one more valley in California, right? And it's very interesting. I would go to the farms, and it's a true story. I would get to the grower. They'll be nice. They'll finish their work. They'll come back. They'll find me sitting there for 2 hours and say, "Are you lost? Like, what do you want? Why are you here? Right? What are you doing here?" So I went through that whole process of understanding that there are still enough challenges, and let's see how far we can go with technology as a medium of expression to solving the issues in food. And here we are with AgShift. We are doing our part to at least create the awareness that we can apply all these innovations to food and solve maybe, 0.0001%, but that is enough contribution as a starting point.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for making the choice from a lot of zeros on your check at IBM to not so many zeros on your check as an entrepreneur and someone who's interested in produce in our environment. Jasmine, same question.
Yeah, I would say, hunger is deeply personal for me. I've been vested in the fight since 2013. I started cooking meals for people that were experiencing homelessness in downtown Atlanta out of my kitchen. And so a video of one of my pop-up restaurants went viral on Facebook, and I woke up one morning to tons of comments and messages and friend requests. And amongst the praise, one of the reoccurring questions people kept saying was, which restaurants donated the food I want to support? And I was thinking, give me my credit. I cooked all of this food myself, but it made me think, why aren't restaurants donating the food? And so once I started to really do the research, I really became upset, which I think is really the good foundation for any startup entrepreneur, to really be so passionate and upset about a problem that you're going to be focused on trying to solve that problem every single day. And at the same time, Uber Eats and Postmates and DoorDash and Grubhub, I'm reading all these stories about how much money they've raised. So collectively, they've raised over $3 billion. And I think it's great that we've built all these technologies designed to get food faster to us. But the reality is we've always been able to go to a restaurant, to order, call in. We were not building any technology to solve problems for the over 40 million Americans that don't know where their next meal is coming from. And so even though I wasn't a technical founder, I saw a real good opportunity to really pivot the model that Uber Eats and DoorDash were using to use that same form of technology to get food to people in need. And I think that's really what drives me, is being on the streets early in 2013 and working 40 to 50 hours a week, grocery shopping, price matching, couponing, cooking all the food to get food to 500 people, and knowing that if not for me, they may not have known where their next meal is coming from. I think every single time it gets hard, that's really what I go back to, is those moments and that original vision that I had to really help feed people.
Wow. Thank you very much for sharing. Amy, same question.
Sure. From my perspective, what I was really looking at it is I'm a 7th generation farmer. So what I was looking at is there's not a time that I can ever remember through my entire experience growing up where we said, I can't wait to pollute the land and I can't wait to make it not sustainable for the next generation. My family's been around for that many years, since they were immigrated over from Europe, and it's always been about how can we continue to make this family farm functional for our family and the future generations that choose to farm. So for me, having an undergraduate in agriculture and spending my entire life in the industry, it was really about finding what I thought was maybe the right technology that could do it commercially in real time, and now. Not 20 years from now, but now as a stepping stone. So similar to Jasmine, I didn't invent the technology, but I found it at the founding stage and really pivoted it towards broad scale agriculture. And we look at it, and I look at it from two different ways. One is the reduce and reuse side, from being able to divert organic waste, food waste, could be even manures. We actually have a deal with Smithfield, who's going to talk a little bit later. But being able to divert that from a landfill or some other inappropriate land application, and then we can really change it, and we make it a real commercial fertilizer that farmers use today. And that commercial fertilizer, because of our technology, reduces the greenhouse gas, as I said, it provides carbon back to the soil, and it also increases yield to the farmer. So he can grow more efficiently on less land, so we're not trying to get unproductive land out of agriculture. So that, for me, was my driver.
It's a really good driver. Thank you.
It's amazing.
Lisa, same question.
So myself and my business partner, who's also my sister, is in the audience. Neither one of us have a background in farming. Cheryl has a background as a tech entrepreneur and had successfully built a organic produce distribution company. I have a background in fashion and event and photo production. And it's quite a personal story, but it was about 3 years ago, Cheryl had exited her distribution company, and I was diagnosed with cancer. And she came to me with the idea of building a hydroponic farm. And while I was in treatment, it was incredibly healing to have conversations about growing food in our community and teaching people how to join a profession that is moving forward around environment and access. So we talk about our business as a platform for access, food access, and addressing the climate crisis, which I won't go into right now, but you guys can kind of, you're an intelligent group, make that summary based on the information you know about hydroponic farms. What I think is so interesting about that story is that, knowing we don't have a background as farmers, we do have a background in like this incredible wide range of skill sets. And for me, it's sales and PR and marketing, and for Cheryl, it's operations and tech. And as concerned citizens and individuals, the motivation of seeing the broken food system, the standard American diet, how that is all kind of intermeshed in my personal experience being sick, is really the motivator to bring this down into South Florida.
As you guys can obviously hear, we have some amazing passion in this room, or on this panel, and that's one of the things that really not just inspired me, but also motivated me to want to do this. From being a fourth generation farmer or grower in India and coming in and leaving IBM to start up something that's going to help the supply chain or the food system, to Jasmine serving families in Atlanta, and is now spread to multiple states across the country with her technology, and Amy, the seventh generation farmer.
Yeah, seventh generation.
And making sure that not just our land is ready for the future, or still here for the future, but that we're still here for the future. And then Lisa obviously had her personal reasons for doing this, but is not just stopped at the growing part, but is looking to make sure that families who don't have enough resources to go to the grocery store do have access to that product that she does grow. So an amazing, talented group of individuals here. We only have a couple of minutes, so in 30 seconds or less, you guys are all entrepreneurs. I'll start with Miku. Actually, I'll start with Lisa, and we'll go that way this time.
Okay.
30 seconds. As an entrepreneur, what do you need to be successful? And what would you say to folks that want to get into this business?
Well, I love that the whole conference opened with systems and a sense of humility. I think we owe the kind of wave that we're riding, the success around that, to the fact that we reach out to advisors and individuals, and I think we're living in a world that creates accessibility in that way. So being able to access expertise from advisors and creating a network of people.
And that's a very good point. A lot of folks, it's about nurturing one another and not kind of a cutthroat situation. It's probably a little too graphic, but yes. Amy?
I'm going to add on to what Lisa said. So it's not only building your advisors, but to me, it's really thinking through how you're bringing your product to market or your system that you're going to bring to market. And then, quite frankly, it's funding, right? It's being able to move it to the next level from the concept to actually a pure commercial standpoint where you really have you're operating on a profit and a loss, and it really is funding. And I would agree with you had an earlier speaker where this sector is underfunded. I see that every single day, and I think it makes a difference and will make a big difference when you want to talk about impactful change.
Thank you. Jasmine?
Yeah, I got to agree with Amy. I mean, obviously you're sitting on stage with 4 women, and we have to make it known that women are extremely underfunded in this country, receiving just 2% of all venture funding, but, being the most brilliant. So I think that we need to get more money and more support. And sometimes when you get funding, we still need access. We need entry. We need opportunities to meet with potential customers. And so the funding just is the starting point. But once you have that funding, we need people to open the doors and say, hey, my business has food, or my business is dealing with farms, and we could use your fertilizer. So it's access, funding, and opportunity.
Thank you. Meek?
Well, I live that every day, being where I am, so fully agree. I would think that one other aspect, apart from funding, what could change this is for the organizations in the food supply chain to open up a little bit more about adopting new innovations, new technology, new ideas, because it's a circle, right? The perception which young entrepreneurs have is that food is a very tough vertical to crack into to build a business. The food supply chain have the perception that, at least I can speak to technology, not to other things, is that technology is not for us. It doesn't help our business. If we can get to the table where both forces can at least open up and have a discussion, then I think it has a trickle-down effect, and it will start solving the issues around funding. And on funding and women, I coach a lot of women entrepreneurs. The problem is that the investment community looks at data. It's a data-driven, and there is an issue. The issue is that there are not so many women-led enterprises or startups which have had that kind of success. So if you're going to make it completely data-driven, then there's a reason why that is not happening the way it should be. So the other aspect is when you add up women entrepreneur, when you add up technology, at least when you add up food and you add up ag tech, it's like 4 of the worst pillars to be standing on to build a really successful company, right? So one has to break in. I think the 2 important things which can happen is, one is for food organizations to just be a little bit open. I mean, honestly, all other, like I was telling Paco, all other innovations have been done, right? In terms of mechanization, in terms of automation of tools, mega sorters. Technology is still left. It's very nascent as applied to food. And that probably is one big hope of how we can address these things. So that's one. And second is to just have more women entrepreneurs come in, because to be biased, food resonates easier to me personally than a mobile app, though I have built a mobile app industry before starting AgShift, right? So it's a natural tendency, and we should capitalize on that. Get women entrepreneurs. They will come up with completely different crazy ideas, but out of 100, if one succeeds, we would have solved something so massive for what we are facing.
All right, well, thank you. We are out of time, but I will say that Miku walks the walk. She still has an iPhone 5. 2, Jasmine made a very important point, one that I wasn't going to make, but I'm glad she did. I am up here with 4 amazing women. Not only are they amazing, successful, and intelligent, but extremely compassionate and nurturing, and this is what makes them so successful. Please, after this, during lunch, come up, get to know them, look at their websites, talk to them. Amazing group of individuals. Thank you for being here and listening to them.